Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Believe in Mavs. As always, I am your host, Mo Murphy, and your Dallas Mavericks are down 3-0. Very bad feeling around Dallas and the Mavericks. So I wanted to take this time and talk to a doctor, Dr. David Chao. Y'all may know him as at Pro Football Doc on Twitter, but he is a guy who is knowledgeable on the situation. And so let's talk about the Kristaps Porzingis injury. Before we talk about that, though, Dr. Chao, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And I'm sorry I'm a little late, seeing patients, etc. Yeah, I know it might be confusing for anyone new, Pro Football Doc. Why are we talking basketball? I say Pro Football Doc because I spent 17 years as the head team physician in the NFL. I've worked in pro basketball. I've helped with the Bulls and with the Timberwolves before, and at Sports Injury Central, we have the former Bulls head team physician on our staff as well. So as far as Kristaps Porzingis is concerned, I get it. It's a rare injury, but it's one that I've seen and treated before in pro athletes. Is there a direct example from basketball, NBA basketball, that I can recall? No, but there are from other sports and so forth. And that's where I think look, no one wants injuries, right?
Right.
But when the Celtics said he was day to day going into game 3, on Believe, I was posting that I don't think he plays the rest of the NBA finals. And because a lot of times what I do is off of video, what's the injury? But you didn't need to do that this time. The Boston Celtics, assuming you believe what they said, put out in a formal press release, torn medial retinaculum, allowing the posterior tibialis tendon to dislocate. So what does that mean? On the inside of the ankle, you can reach down right now and feel what we call the medial malleolus, the inside bone on your ankle. And behind there is a tendon that's almost as thick as my index finger that wraps around the back of that bone. Imagine the pain and discomfort if it flips to in front of the bone. That's what he did. Now, did it flip back? Yes. Is he walking around? Yes. Could he stand at the three-point line and shoot threes? I think he could. But can he go both ways? Can he play defense? Can he be a rim protector? He would be a complete liability out on the court without dynamic movement. As a matter of fact, I think surgery is coming for Kristaps Porzingis. He didn't play game 3. I think Woj said he may be out for the rest. And then I think Sham said, well, they're still trying, but it's up to the athletic trainers. For your listeners, I got some grief on Twitter from people that perhaps don't know what I do. So why are you calling out the Celtics as liars? Why are you calling out their team physicians? I'm not.
Right.
Look, it's called coach speak, right? I mean, we see it in the NFL a lot. You're trying not to tip your hand into what's going on. And everything they say is consistent. Porzingis wants to play, but it's up to our medical staff if he will. And what's the difference? And so they're just calling it day to day. They're keeping hope alive. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't see how you're going to be able to play, et cetera. And an extra 2 days rest for game 4, he's not coming back. An extra week's rest to a game 6 or 7. I just don't see him being dynamic. And let me tell you something. If you're a Mavs fan, because you want everyone to be healthy, you want Porzingis to play. You want to know why? He'd be a defensive liability, and you could go right at him as soon as he was in the game. So you, as a Mavs fan, first of all, you always want to beat a team at full strength and the whole deal, but you would want him to play. He would be a liability, if he tried to play. And look, do I think the Celtics doctors don't know what's going on? No, I think they do. They're not speaking to the public. I can't tell you how many times what was reported about what my team was. Look, I was involved with the famous Phillip Rivers playing through a torn ACL 6 days after an E-scope in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. I can talk about it because it's been publicly reported and Phillip has allowed me to talk about it. But we didn't tell anyone he had a torn ACL and had an E-scope, and we certainly knew you know,
right.
what the reality was, you know, and et cetera. So it's not illegal to say it's his leg, it's his ankle, and day to day. He's day to day, but the reality is he's not playing.
Right. And I did so because I'm no doctor at all. So when the Celtics put out the report, I read the report that you just spit back. And so I was like, okay, I need to dumb this down for myself to understand like what the injury is, because day to day, but I'm like, it sounds like there's some things torn and dislocated. Those were the two words that stood out. So I did
tendon.
right.
The
And so research and Google doctored it like everybody else on Twitter. So to dumb it down for me, what it sounded like is a knee injury, previous possible, never fully healed, led to his ankle injury. Like that, the dumb it down version for me was like, it seemed like his knee injury, but I could be wrong, Doc. Go ahead, take it away.
There is a medial retinaculum in the knee. This medial retinaculum is at the ankle.
Okay, so it wasn't
nothing to do with the knee.
Okay.
It's on his left side. Nothing to do with his right calf injury recent.
Right. And they said that.
This is the ankle. This is not the knee. There is a medial retinaculum in the knee. There is a medial retinaculum around the posterior tip tendon in the ankle. So it's purely ankle, but the big part is a dislocating tendon snapping. The closest famous comp, you might be too young to know the comp, baseball. Remember Curt Schilling's bloody sock? Boston Red Sox?
That stands out to me. That's actually something. I know it wasn't like necessarily, I was a kid at the time, but yeah, I do remember that though.
This is Boston Celtics. That was Boston Red Sox. Curt Schilling's bloody sock was a result of a dislocating peroneal tendon. Similarity is a tendon in the ankle dislocating. Difference is Schilling was the outside lateral. This is the inside medial. And the big difference is Schilling is asked essentially to do one powerful motion again and again and again and again and again. Porzingis, or any NBA basketball player, is asked to do many different motions and thus risking the subluxation. Curt Schilling's bloody sock, the doctor did something to hold it out of place or in place, and that there was a little residual blood in the bloody sock. But that's the closest comp. Could Curt Schilling have played shortstop? No possible way. Could he have played center field? No possible way. This is why I'm saying Porzingis, he's not playing. But if he does, the Mavs should go right at him and around him and make him move.
If Porzingis did play, because like a doctor of your magnitude as well, you've been around the professional game, like you said, football, basketball, baseball, it doesn't matter. You've had experience with all type of athletes. Is it detrimental as like a medical staff to go ahead and allow Kristaps to play at this point? Like, because like you're saying, he really can't or shouldn't play. So if you come to this determining factor, like, are you kind of hoping he doesn't get re-injured? Because if you do, like, your job is on the line?
Well, to be fair to the medical staff, the Celtics, and to Kristaps Porzingis, he already played.
Right.
They said he hurt it at 3:47 of the third quarter. He played a little bit in the fourth quarter. Go watch the tape of how he played. Very gingerly moving around, etc. Okay. At the time, they didn't know what the injury was. They put him back out there. So I'm not saying they did anything wrong. They didn't cause him further damage. Could Porzingis, and I'm not backtracking, I got grief on Twitter once again because I said, sure, he could stand out at the 3-point line and shoot, but he's not going to. And people are like, oh, you're backtracking. He just said he wasn't going to play. Sure, could stand at the 3-point line and shoot threes. Sure, he walked into the arena without a boot on and without crutches, but that's not NBA basketball. And in the NBA, you can't it's not like you can DH a guy or put him out there and just shoot three. You got to come down and play defense, right? And with the dynamic nature of it, there's no way he was going to play. He already played some, but he's not going to play effectively. So I don't see how the Celtics make the decision to put him out there. I don't think he has much of a chance to make the retinacular tear worse. It's already torn.
Right.
He does have a chance to make the tendon that's in the right spot come out of place again and cause pain. It's not going to damage his career. It's more about how can he move around. As a matter of fact, I think you're going to hear that Porzingis has surgery as soon as this season is over.
Right.
And it's a good recovery surgery. They just got to repair the retinaculum.
And it from what I read, it's like a 6 to 8 week like recovery, and then like a hard physical therapy after that, right?
I might look. I think he could be ready for close to the start of next season.
Okay.
And be healthy. At 6 to 8 might be a little quick, but it depends on what you're doing. But the other injury, see, we went into this series actually saying the attention was on Porzingis' calf going into the series. And what we said at Sports Injury Central, and what we try and do, is we're really the only place that gives true injury analysis as opposed to injury reporting. Everyone else does injury reporting. We said, looking at Porzingis' calf and his soleus injury, we expected him to be fine with the calf. And unfortunately, it's the other side. But we went into the series, and you may not like this, saying we are more worried about Luka Doncic in this series than Kristaps Porzingis in this series. Now, we weren't clairvoyant in knowing about the side oblique or whatever ribs or whatever he's getting injected now and again. But we're just talking about overall wear and tear on Luka and his knee issue that continues to linger. And, now, of course, Porzingis is out, but Luka still has the worries there. And I have to hand it to Luka. First of all, it's very unusual in basketball to get injections to play, and he's doing it. The same tip my cap to Porzingis. He shouldn't have been back out there for the fourth quarter, but he went, right? They're tough guys. But Luka is not 100%. And not only that does that contribute to the Game 3 loss, it contributes to why he fouled out. Because let's admit, he's not the best defensive player in the world.
Right, of course.
But if he's now another half step slow in reaching or moving his feet because of the trunk thorax injury, it's easier to pick up fouls, especially when the Celtics went right at him. So I think that had something to do with it, how he's feeling in general, be it the knee or the ribs, etc., where he got into foul trouble.
Right. And I'm glad you pointed that out, Doc, because the thing about it is you, and I know you deal with this because you are a doctor, the Google doctors, the Twitter doctors, like their point of Luka has to be pretty healthy because he plays well offensively throughout this series and he's played well throughout the playoffs. But what I wanted people to understand is like on offense, even when you're injured, you can do certain things because you kind of control your body movements. You know where you want to get to go. It's not reactionary. Defense is reactionary. And so if that ankle is compromised and the Boston Celtics are swinging the ball around and you have to move and now you've planted your foot in an uncomfortable position that you didn't plan on doing, that's when your injury is exposed. And so it's a little bit harder to play defense with a bad ankle than it is offensively because of the sudden movements and the reactionary movements that you have to have defensively. Would that be accurate for knees and ankles?
No question is accurate in general. And a very common football example is it's hard enough to come back from an ACL, but it's much harder for a defensive player. It's much easier for a wide receiver who can say, look, I've got an out route at 7 steps and planting off the good knee, and here you go, versus a DB who has to react to what's happening. And that makes it much harder for a cornerback to recover than a wide receiver from an ACL. Hard enough for both, but that's the thing. And even in basketball, look at Derrick Rose. Way harder to recover from an ACL in basketball. And Derrick Rose has had subsequent issues and problems because you have to play both ways. It's not what we call set pieces. Adrian Peterson, hats off to him. 2,000 yards in the season after his ACL. Unbelievable, fantastic, mind-blowing. But let me tell you something. It's harder to play NBA point guard offensively and defensively coming off an ACL than it is to be a running back. Oh, you take hits. Okay, but that's not it. It's about planting, cutting, acceleration, and change of direction. And that's what makes it hard. So not to get sidetracked there. But yes, I do believe Luka's health, whether knee/side ribs or whatever, contributed some to the fouling out.
Right. And like you said, you could tell, like, it was very visible, but obviously, like, people just like to get on Twitter and the internet and be know-it-alls. But it was very visible on how he moved offensively versus how he moved defensively. And like you said, he's compromised on top of the fact he's not the world's best defender anyway. So any type of compromise on the defensive side of the ball is going to stand out when he's injured. So with like, do you think Luka, and I don't want to worry Mavs fans because it seems like his injuries are minor. Is this something like a minor procedure, not necessarily surgery? Because I know it's not always surgery every time a doctor cuts you open and kind of fixes some things. But do you think this is something he'll recover just from a nice off season of rest, or he might have a minor procedure or two to be ready for next season?
The oblique, the ribs, the trunk, whatever, I'm not worried about. It's what's in his knee that's been lingering for a while. Is it wear and tear? Is there something that needs to be done? The knee is probably the bigger worry long term than the trunk.
Right.
But, the bottom line is Luka's so talented. I mean, he can make it work offensively. He's just so talented.
Right. And it's one of those, he doesn't depend on his athleticism. So an injury might slow him down a little bit, but his game isn't prevalent off like a LeBron James. He has a knee injury. We could tell, like, okay, you've taken a couple steps back based on your injury. And so we could tell, and it's out there for everybody to see.
Yes.
Okay. So it's, I'm glad you came and made sense of everything, because like the all the medical words for the Kristaps Porzingis injury, and then like even with the medical terms for, like Luka and saying he was getting shots injected, like that's the simple way for us to understand, oh, he's actually really hurting if he's getting injections prior to playing a game, and that's what he has to do. Was it something Luka had to do to play? Like, could he have played without injections, or it was just to minimize the pain?
I think to minimize the pain. I mean, as I followed Luka over his career, he's always come back quickly from injury, quicker than you think, and played through stuff. So the hat's off to him. And at one point, I remember a couple years ago, we thought he had a high ankle sprain, and we thought he'd be out more than he was. He was still out for a little bit, but not out as much. And quite honestly, it's unusual. In football, all the time you get injections to play. In basketball, relatively unusual. Look, in football, we have minimum three team positions traveling on every trip.
Right.
In basketball, you have 0 until the playoffs, and then you have 1.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought there was always a team doctor that traveled.
No, athletic trainer, yes. More than one, yes. Team doctors traditionally do not travel to regular season games. In the playoffs, one team doctor does.
So it's like, no offense to an athletic trainer, but like I've had multiple surgeries on my ankle and went through. I feel like the athletic trainer is closer to going to see your physical therapist as opposed to going to see your surgeon. So I feel like the doctor is like going to see like a true, you go see the athletic trainer and then they'll refer you to a doctor. So I had no idea that there was never a team doctor.
Well, the athletic trainer deals with a lot more than a doctor would need to deal with, because they're day-to-day, all the things. But the athletic trainer, so lots of respect to athletic trainers. If you could only have one travel with the team, the doctor or the athletic trainer, it should always be the athletic trainer, because there's more stuff that comes up for the athletic trainer. But if you need a shot, the athletic trainer can't give it.
Right. So typically, like throughout a season, and I know you got to go, I know you got plenty of patience. I just want to, so throughout a season, typically, like, will these guys be seen, like, so when they go and play on the road, usually is there a team doctor at home games for the opposing team, and you might have to be seen by that doctor, or there's just not a doctor between both teams and it's all on the
there's always a home team doctor. It
Okay.
may not be the same head team doctor. You got to remember, it's also a numbers game. With
Right.
82 games in the in the NBA, can a doctor, like all these team doctors, have day jobs where the vast majority of their work is regular patients? That's the thing people don't understand.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought
so they're working their day job, and so can you really afford to put your practice on hold and go travel for 41 away games and the NBA travel schedule? No, it would become a full-time job. And so that's why. But at home, there's always a doctor. And as a courtesy, the home team doctor will attend to the visiting team. But if Luka has this rib, thorax, oblique, whatever injury in the regular season, he's either just sitting or playing without an injection if it's
Right.
on the road. That's just the way that it is. But because it's playoffs, this was a home game, but the previous game was on the road. I'm sure the Mavs doctor was there. So I'm not impugning basketball's medical staff at all. It's just the differences. And in the NFL, you always travel home and away, even preseason. In the NBA, you typically don't until the playoffs.
And that's probably just because of the abundance of injuries in football, right? Like all the different type of injuries. I know there's a lot in basketball too, but I know with the contact on top of that and guys being just, they wake up on game day.
Let me tell you something. Having covered both sports, in one NFL week or game, there are more injuries than an entire basketball NBA season for your team.
That's that it's just crazy to hear about because we don't get to discuss with doctors what goes on behind the scenes. So even something like that, like the Tampa Bay Bucks on a Sunday afternoon may have more injuries in the middle of October on one Sunday than the Dallas Mavericks will have throughout the entire season, which also makes sense because 15 guys on the roster, usually 2 or 3 go down throughout the season, and usually most of them are back. They're not season-ending injuries. You may have one. Each team may have one guy that doesn't play for the rest of the season. So something like that does also make sense. So, Dr. Chao, I don't want to keep you too long. If there's anything else you got for us.
No, I mean, and the reason for that, besides the numbers game, 15 guys, 5 guys on the court at a time, but football with 46 actives. But here's the difference. Basketball is indeed a contact sport. Football is not a contact sport. Basketball is a contact sport. Football is not a contact sport. Football is a collision sport. Okay, that's the difference.
Yeah, that is a major difference. It's the difference between blowing the tire on the interstate and hitting the wall, and then hitting 2 cars hitting. Yeah. It's car accidents, but they're not in the same capacity. There's certain levels. So, Dr. Chao, I appreciate your time. I know you got patience to get back to. I know you are a busy, very busy man. So I do appreciate you for jumping on. Is there anything you'd like to enlighten anybody else on before you go?
No, we're good. If you go to sicscore.com, SIC Score, Sports Injury Central, we have analysis year-round, be it NBA Finals, if anything else comes up, preseason injuries. We have a lot of basketball coverage, and, of course, football season. We're really busy with the analysis, and we always have the court views for basketball, field views for football, so you can see which teams are healthier, depending on who you're rooting for, and even for fantasy. And we actually grade their health against the opponent. It's even broken down in football for, let's say, the Dallas Cowboys run offense against the Cleveland Browns run defense in a certain game, in the O-line versus the D-line. And that could help you in fantasy and gaming and fandom.
Right, 100%. Well, Dr. Chao, again, I appreciate your time. We do appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening, and we will, hopefully we will follow you during football season and the rest of baseball season and so on and so forth. But I do appreciate your time. Everybody else be well, be safe, and we will catch you on another episode of Believe in Mavs.